5722 of the Attorney General, Minister of Economy, Civil Service, Communications, Housing and Community Development. Can the Minister update Parliament on the status of the review of the Fiji Micro, Small and Medium Entities Credit Guarantee Scheme undertaken by the Reserve Bank of Fiji? Naka.
Thank you. I now call on the Attorney General and the Minister for Economy, Civil Service, Communications, Housing and Community Development, the Honourable Ayaz Said Kayam. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, I'd like to thank the Honourable Member for this question. Mr. Speaker, sir, just by way of background, the Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises Credit Guarantee Scheme was established in 2012 and is administered by the Reserve Bank of Fiji. The aim of the scheme is to encourage and expand private sector lending to micro, small and medium enterprises and also complement government's initiatives, sir, to promote MSME development, investment and local business activity. Under the scheme, sir, government guarantees the outstanding principal amount on defaulted loans, which are available to all micro, small and medium businesses with a turnover of up to $1.25 million per year. Following the last review in April of in 2020, sir, the risk-sharing arrangement between government and the lenders was enhanced, allowing government to increase its guarantee to 60% of the principal outstanding on defaulted MSME loans up to a limit of $60,000 per businesses from 50% or $50,000. In addition, to encourage women participation in businesses and support the development of rural areas and traditional sectors, the government guarantee was in fact raised to 75% of the principal outstanding on defaulted loans up to a limit of $75,000 per businesses on all MSME loans to women entrepreneurs as well as to those involved in the agriculture, forestry and fishery sectors. As of January 2022, Mr. Speaker, sir, a total of 264 businesses with $11.3 million in loans were covered under the scheme. However, Mr. Speaker, sir, the default rate is in fact very low. Only 30 businesses in fact have defaulted to date. In fact, it was very few even before COVID, just because of COVID, and the amount of exposure has been only $0.32 million, sir. This means, Mr. Speaker, sir, that the scheme is successful, as 314 businesses have in fact benefited from accessing loans where the interest rate is capped at 9.45%. Because of the guarantee, the requirement for equity contribution was also lower than normal. Mr. Speaker, sir, the scheme has helped establish MSMEs to access finance, at the same time enable lending institutions to share part of the risk with government. And we encourage all the private sector banks to do so too. In addition, Mr. Speaker, sir, as part of the scheme, under the COVID-19 Recovery Credit Guarantee Scheme, in 2021 and 2022 national budget, Mr. Speaker, sir, government by RBF has made available $200 million through the COVID-19 Recovery Credit Guarantee Scheme to help businesses meet their working capital needs, for example, paying for labor costs, rental costs, utility bills, purchase of stock, etc. Under the scheme, sir, existing micro businesses with turnover below $50,000 can access up to $10,000. Small businesses with annual turnover between $50,000 and $300,000, can access up to $20,000. Medium-sized businesses with turnover between $300,000 and $1.25 million can access up to $50,000. And large businesses with turnover of above $1.25 million can in fact access up to $100,000. Mr. Speaker, sir, and the loan guarantee for micro enterprises, for example, we guarantee up to 90% of those who have borrowed $10,000 or less. We guarantee up to 85% for those who borrowed $20,000 or less. We guarantee 80% of those who borrowed $50,000 or less. And we guarantee 75% of those who borrowed $100,000 or less. In this way also, Mr. Speaker, as the members may recall from the other side, in fact, we pay the interest rate. There's a budgetary allocation. We pay the interest rate for the first 2 years. And they pay no more than 3.99%. We pay the interest rate. There's no principal payment required, sir. And in the third year, then they start doing their principal payments and also the interest. So they get a 2-year window of opportunity to be able to borrow money, build up their business or rebuild their business in most cases, and be able to stand on their feet. And then there is a commitment in respect of paying those loans, sir. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, as of 1 April 2022, a total of 5,471 loan applications have been approved to the tune of roughly $114.7 million. Of the successful applicants, 47%, or 2,573, are micro businesses. 31%, or 1,718, are small businesses. 13%, or 703, are medium-sized businesses, and 9%, or 477, are in fact large businesses, sir. In terms of the value of loans dispersed, around 16% of the total loan value is for micro businesses, 21% for small businesses, 26% for medium-sized businesses, and 37% for large businesses. To date, Mr. Speaker, sir, government has also paid out $203 million as interest subsidy for the loans, as I mentioned earlier on, covered under the guarantee scheme. The total interest cost to government on the $114.7 million loan facility approved over 2 years would be $9.2 million. And of course, as I mentioned, there's no principal payments, there's no payments of fees or charges, etc. Mr. Speaker, sir, this scheme has, of course, served its objectives since 5,471 businesses have been assisted in the initiative, the bulk of which are MSMEs. The $112.4 million disbursed to date is timely and, of course, ensures, Mr. Speaker, sir, that disruptions to business operations are minimized and much needing working capital, of course, sir, is pumped into these businesses so they can continue to survive and indeed create and continue to create more jobs for our ordinary Fijians. Thank you, sir.
I thank the Honourable Attorney General. Honourable Dr. Philip Tusawau, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So I rise to pose a question on that response. The audit findings, some of the audit findings on the scheme, majority of the loans that had been registered in the inception of the scheme were not eligible to be covered and therefore have not complied with all of the requirements of the MSME guidelines 2016. And one of the other ones is annual turnover of some of the businesses whose loans were registered for cover under the scheme since its inception in 2012, but they exceeded the $500,000 threshold. Hence, it did not comply with the SME CGS guidelines. So my question is, what is the Reserve Bank and the related financial institutions doing about this non-compliance so that it doesn't happen again in the future? Thank you.
Honourable Attorney General.
Sir, I wish the honourable member actually asked a substantive question rather than going on his goose chase, getting me to answer a question about can the Minister update Parliament on status of review. He should have asked me straight out from whatever he was referring to. This is the kind of sort of shenanigans we have to go through. But, Mr. Speaker, sir, I don't know which audit that he's talking about, but if you want to look at the success, if you want to look at the success of this guarantee scheme, Mr. Speaker, sir, the default rate is so low. That's what we should be talking about. That all of these guarantee schemes, prior to even the COVID one, we had very low rates of default. Only a handful of people defaulted. Very little exposure. In other words, all the businesses, micro, small, medium enterprises that in fact were assisted, were able to flourish. And only because of COVID, we had about 30 businesses that in fact defaulted. Notwithstanding that, sir, the rate of attrition or rate of defaulting, Mr. Speaker, sir, is not even $1 million out of the $11.3 million. I love you to go and look at the statistics of what FDB had rolled out many decades ago and look at the rate of default then. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next oral question for